What's up, bronies? So I tried to make a new team to center around the Skarm Gastro Tran core, but I believe it somehow ended up being the exact same 6 that I think Shofu had in his last video. I don't know, when I saw his I was like, facepalm. But anyway, I guess the sets might be different because I always make a bunch of personal changes to stuff. But anyway, he sends out his Thundurus and I'm leading off with Tangrowth. Definitely fearing the HPI, so I'm just going to go into Gastrodon to wall with Thundurus for now. Grass Knot really isn't that common of a move, so I'm not really going to be too scared of it. I'm running a Sassy mix set here with Earthquake and Ice Beam. Usually this is the best overall coverage combination that Gastrodon has right now, because it's pretty much best for taking stuff like Tyranitar and Jirachi, as well as Ice Beam for Thundurus and Dragons. So I'm going to double switch back to Tangrowth. Reason I didn't go into Heatran predicting his Skarmory switch in was he is running that Dugtrio, and it's going to be really problematic for this team because just in case he manages to trap my Heatran, there's pretty much no other way I have of getting past Skarmory, so yeah, I really have to be careful around that Dugtrio. But anyway, I am going to get off that Sleep Powder on his Politoed, which is going to be pretty useful. Now that I look back, it was a little bit risky because if he was running a stronger set, maybe Specs or something, he definitely could have KO'd me. So yeah, I really shouldn't have done that looking back on this. So we both go into our Skarmories now, and this is pretty much going to be a hazard war for a couple of turns. I'm not feeling too badly about this though, because I do have an Excadrill to spin away his hazards later. He also has a potential spinner in his Starmie. Not really sure exactly if it has Rapid Spin, but it's possible, pretty likely actually, unless it's just running a full offensive set. So I am going to go into Excadrill right now. Even without Sand, it's going to be able to spin away the hazards, which is definitely what I'm looking for. Thought he might go for Brave Bird, which might have been a little bit annoying because it would have broken my air balloon. So then I would have been vulnerable to all those hazards. But he just goes for the Whirlwind instead, and I get sent out into my own Skarmory. And I'm actually going to predict the switch and go for a Whirlwind in this case. Actually, even if he stayed in, it wouldn't have been that bad because I'm pretty sure I would have been able to outspeed him because I'm running a few extra speed EVs. A general rule I use for speed creeping is I put enough to outspeed the standard by 2 points. So I get to pretty much beat the standard and also beat people trying to beat the standard, which is usually enough for most opponents. Anyway, he's going to get sent out into his Politoed, and I pretty much just went for a Brave Bird to gauge how much physical bulk he had and pretty much see what he's running. He does seem to be running a pretty physically bulky set though, so I'm just going to Whirlwind on this turn. Try to get a little bit more damage on his Politoed because if I can get rid of his Weather Starter, it's definitely going to help me out, especially since I'm running a different weather type than him. And he's going to get sent out into his Dugtrio. Just went for a Brave Bird on the off chance that he would actually stay in. Really didn't think he would, but for some reason he decides to do it. And if he had actually been a lot more careful with his Dugtrio, then he would have had a really good chance of beating me because of how useful it is against my team. But for some reason, he just decides to let it die. It turns out to be a Choice Band variant also, so it definitely could have KO'd my Heatran at least. So I do get rid of his Dugtrio, which is really good because it's going to make things a lot easier for Tyranitar and Heatran. And I'm just going to go into Tyranitar on the predicted Thunderbolt from his Thundurus. He actually predicts the switch and goes for a Focus Blast though. I probably should have switched to Gastrodon directly, but I kind of wanted to switch up the weather and try to surprise him with my Chople Berry because I'm running Rock Slide too, which should be able to KO his Thundurus. But yeah, he just hits me with the Focus Blast, so that breaks my Chople Berry. Going to be forced to go into Gastrodon now. Don't want Tyranitar to die yet because he still has his Politoed alive, and I probably should have gone to Gastrodon for the first switch like I said before. But anyway, I am going to go to it now and just go for that Ice Beam, which is going to threaten him out. He actually switches out into his Skarmory, which is going to take this set pretty well. I'm not running Scald, which is Gastrodon's strongest move against Skarmory usually, so I'm not going to be able to do too much. But I still do have Excadrill to spin away his hazards, so it's not really going to be too bad if he sets up some on me. And I'm going to go into Heatran now that I've gotten rid of his Dugtrio. Should be a lot easier to play with. He does end up setting Stealth Rock up on the switch, but it's not really going to be too bad for me. And I actually am going to predict the switch and go for Roar. He sends out his Politoed to wall the potential fire attack and also get off Drizzle again. But he is going to take some pretty notable damage from entry hazards, so that is going to weaken his Politoed down over the long run. He actually gets roared out into Jirachi. I was hoping it wouldn't be like Starmie or something, so I got kind of lucky in this case. So he does go into his Jirachi, and I wasn't really sure what set he was running. Maybe it could be that Sub-CM Water Pulse set, because that's kind of annoying when it comes to rain. And I just decided to go for Stealth Rock this time because I just wanted to Roar the first time in case he sent in his Starmie basically, so I could get some more entry hazard damage on it. But I am going to switch out in this case and go to Gastrodon to scout that Water Pulse in case he has it. But it does look like he's only running Thunder because that's what he decides to use again. Maybe it's like a mix set because personally when I use Rain, I like to run Iron Head and Thunder, so I can basically check some special threats better but still have the Thunder for stuff like Skarmory. And I am going to go for Earthquake this time. That's one of the reasons why Earthquake is better than Earth Power, because hits stuff like Jirachi and Tyranitar better. Especially if Jirachi is like a Calm Mind variant of some sort, it prevents it from setting up more easily against me. So anyway, he is going to go into his Politoed for some reason, not really sure why, and I'm just going to go to Earthquake, and that is going to be able to KO, so it won't quite be able to pass the Wish successfully. I guess he was just trying to heal up his Politoed so it could keep up weather for longer during the match, but unfortunately Earthquake is going to be enough to KO him. Well, unfortunately for him, because that does mean that his Politoed is going to go down, and I'm pretty much going to have permanent sand now as soon as I switch back in my Tyranitar. So I'm going to go into Excadrill as he goes into his Skarmory again, pretty much just because I wanted to spin away his hazards. He really only has Stealth Rock up right now, but I prefer for him to have nothing if possible. Really not sure what my reasoning was behind Rock Slide over here. Maybe unless it was like trying to hit Starmie coming in on a predicted Rapid Spin while still retaining something to sort of hit Skarmory with. Or maybe it was just like a misclick, I don't even know. But yeah, I definitely should have just gone straight for the Rapid Spin. Not really sure why I went for that Rock Slide there. And I am going to go back into Heatran now as he goes into his Starmie on a double switch. So that's going to force me out, of course. I probably could go to Gastrodon here because it should be able to handle Starmie pretty well for the most part. But I don't really want him getting off a Rapid Spin, especially since Gastrodon can't really do too much to Starmie, especially if he's got like a Recover on that set or something. So I'm actually going to make the decision to sort of sacrifice Tyranitar. Not really going to be too bad because I've already gotten rid of his Politoed, so I should be able to just maintain permanent sand from this point on. If he went for a Rapid Spin, I also could have prevented him from going for Recover when I have the threat of Dark Stabs anyway. So I'm going to switch in my Excadrill because it's probably going to be the best check I have right now to his Starmie. I didn't go for a Rapid Spin on the switch because I just decided not to predict in case he decided to stay in for whatever reason. He probably wouldn't, but there's not really any need to take risks. I would say that the key to winning consistently is probably just to avoid risks when necessary. And usually that's when you don't take unnecessary predictions like that would have been. Anyway, I am going to go to Heatran on the predicted Brave Bird from his Skarmory. He could have gone for Spikes, but I really don't think he would have when I just had my Rapid Spinner out that turn anyway. So he's going to switch out in this case and go into his Starmie again. I ended up just going for the Flamethrower because it would have been enough to take out his Starmie anyway, and in case he decided to stay in with his Skarmory for whatever reason, I guess it would have been able to KO that as well. So yeah, could have gone for Roar, but this is going to be definitely enough to KO his Starmie after those hazards. He's going to send out his Thundurus, and fortunately I still have my Gastrodon, which should be able to handle it pretty well. This match, I just realized, is pretty defensive. I don't think I'm ever going to use such a stally team again because I just don't enjoy it when it comes to Wi-Fi, and it makes for pretty long video lengths as well. So he's going to go for that obvious Focus Blast, and Gastrodon takes that pretty well. I actually thought about going for a Recover next turn, but I ended up thinking that Gastrodon was still at pretty good health for handling his Thundurus later, especially since I've still got Excadrill to function as an emergency check if I needed to. So I just clicked on the obvious Ice Beam. Actually ends up critting his Skarmory though, so that puts it at pretty low health. Thought he would definitely try to roost off the damage here, especially since I'm slower, so it would have been able to resist it after he removes that Flying type. But he actually is going to predict the switch, or maybe just go for Spikes randomly in case he thinks that he's like sacking his Skarmory or something. So yeah, I am going to go to Heatran, but he does get up that first layer of Spikes along with Stealth Rock. So that's going to be a little bit annoying until I can get Excadrill to spin away later. So I am going to go for Flamethrower, just finish off his Skarmory, which is going to be pretty useful in this case. Of course, that does mean that Excadrill is going to be a lot more threatening to his team now because it seems that Skarmory was pretty much the only safe switch-in he had for all those turns. And he is going to go into his Thundurus, so I'm just going to switch into Skarmory. I actually don't really need Skarmory at this point because of how few Pokemon he has left. So I'm just going to pretty much sack it on a free turn. I decided to keep Gastrodon though because it's still pretty useful against both Thundurus and his Jirachi. And somehow I survived with only 1 HP. I guess it doesn't really matter because I plan to sack Skarmory anyway, so it's kind of just a waste of a turn to be honest. And he just goes for that Focus Blast again. One thing I did notice is he doesn't seem to have missed any Focus Blast in this entire game. And I guess that could be interpreted as hacks from a mathematical standpoint. but really I don't mind. I mean, it's good for him, and I personally don't like it when moves miss anyway. So I'm going to go into Excadrill to handle his Thundurus, really hoping that I didn't miss the Rock Slide, because there have been a couple times when a last minute Rock Slide flinch kind of cost me the game at times, but thankfully I don't miss in this case. So he is going to go into his Jirachi now, which is his last Pokemon, by the way, so I am definitely going to be able to finish it off with Earthquake. He goes for Protect for some reason, and really not sure why, because I mean, when you're in a situation like this, I personally would just not go for the Protect to end the game faster. But yeah, he is going to not use it the second turn, and I'm going to finish him off with Earthquake. So yeah, GG. See you guys later.